Mayor Masters, welcome to Chamber Chat.
Trent, nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
We usually started out by getting the person to introduce himself and their role, so everybody knows, but let's do it anyway.
All right, I'm Sandra Masters. I'm mayor of the city of Regina. As I like to say, I serve the office of the mayor. I'm a mother to 4 grown adults and 2 granddaughters. And as mayor of the city, I serve on a bunch of committees and boards and chair council and advocate with different levels of government and with businesses and associations and residents and just trying to move the city forward.
Yes, absolutely. So you need to know this is the first time we've actually taken the Chamber Chat on the road, so congratulations. But let's talk about what happens. We're now in your boardroom. You have an office right beside us. This is the whole mayor's area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about what happens here on a day-to-day basis.
Oh gosh. Okay. So we hold meetings in this office with different organizations or residents that have reached out that either have concerns or opportunities that they want to bring forward. We meet with internal staff here as it relates to items related to upcoming executive committee or council things. I have a lot of, or during the pandemic, clearly in the first couple of years, I had a lot of Zoom meetings. That's how I met folks, and you'll find that from a geographic perspective, it's still helpful when you're getting face to face with folks out in Ottawa that this still works really well. And we read reports and go through reports, and what you're not seeing is the pieces of the paper that we throw up on the wall when we're addressing a pretty serious issue, that we're itemizing the stats, the data, the positioning of folks that are coming to us to try and make good decisions.
That's that whiteboard magic, if you will.
It's a whiteboard and the flip charts. So we run out of space on the whiteboard, so we start to use the flip charts.
That's it. So being a mayor is much more than cutting ribbons, etc. I mean, you're dealing with not only the citizens, but you have a council. Like from a governance perspective, maybe just fill the people in on that. Let's not assume that they know.
Yeah.
Right?
So the mayor is elected at large, meaning the entire city votes on the mayor's position. Councilors have about 25,000 residents, not necessarily voters, but residents in each of the wards. Is how it's split up with ward boundaries. So every council member is elected in their ward. Everyone has 1 vote when it comes to council, but the mayor is the chair of council.
Right.
I don't chair executive committees, but by legislation, I'm on the police commission board. I am on the library board. I belong to the Biggest City Mayors Caucus through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I belong to the City Mayors Caucus in Saskatchewan through SUMA board, the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association.
Yes.
I also chair the school board council liaison committee. I serve on audit and finance, which was a committee that we had created this term, and the city center core working committee. I serve on that as well. So I serve on those. I'm ex officio on a bunch of others that normally I just stay out of, so to speak. And the mayor, by and large, I have meetings as it relates to governance, whether that's the police commission, whether that's the council or the RPL or the school board liaison committee. So I serve on those from a governance perspective, and then we participate in a number of other things which are more about advocacy than they are about governance.
Yeah. So busy then?
Yeah. So we started tracking the number of events that I get invited to, and you can write into the clerk's office to request presence of the mayor and or council. You can anybody can do that. So we started tracking that, I think, in 2022, 2023, just to, I wanted to actually show that people were getting their money's worth. So in addition to the boards and committees that I sit on, or any other kind of associations that reach out, I attend, January's a little lighter, so about 80 events or meetings, in addition to, the legislative meetings. And then they can get pretty busy through the months of May, June, July, into September and October, November, where they're north of 100 that I'll attend. That's not what I'm invited to. That's what I can actually physically attend.
And would that include those meetings that you're the representative of the city in terms of provincial, federal, the different layers of government?
Yeah. Right? So those are meetings where it could be an announcement. It could be the request of the provincial government or the federal government to say, hey, we want to have a discussion about X. And so those are some of the meetings, and then some of them are just celebratory. It could be Mosaic. It could be the Taste of Philippines. It could be the National Lacrosse that we host at Mosaic.
Yeah. So we're coming up to the election year, and then so is it basically 4 years in office? Are you having fun?
I honestly, I enjoy coming to work every day.
Yeah.
I enjoy coming to work every day. I have had a response recently, which is it's a little Dickensian. It's the best of times and the worst of times, you know?
Yeah.
But we talk about getting revitalized all the time here by being able to go to the events that I'm talking about or be in meetings where folks are doing incredible things.
Yeah.
Organizations are kind of leaping forward. We get great news about something. And it could be the Optimist Club.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, we'd love to do X. Who do we partner with at the city to improve the city? And it's all of those kind of small little Lego blocks that build that foundation that just makes our city great. Or it could be really big things like, hey, we're going to announce a school. Harbor Landing School gets announced, and you turn some saw and you're like, it only took 3 years, but this is awesome. Like it's that type of stuff. Yeah.
So when I do facilitations, I always talk about, we do good old SWOT analysis. So tell me about the strengths of our city, the strengths of Regina through your lens.
Oh gosh, it's the people. We have such unbelievably talented people in this city and ambitious people in this city and helpful people in this city. And then the organizations that they serve. So it's not just that they're individuals through a business or an just themselves.
Right.
They serve organizations as well. So it's kind of incredible. But then our strengths are in, like economically speaking, are in the things that we know. It's resource based, so it doesn't matter if it's agriculture, oil and gas, which is now leading into clean energy. It's finance. We've got a really strong financial industry here. Our post-secondary is continuously improving, and I'm kind of really excited by some of the changes there. We've got the tech industry. We now have again the film and the digital media industry. That screen that's been built is phenomenal. Manufacturing is a really big deal here. So is tourism. People are always shocked at the impact that tourism has on our economy. And so we have such strength there, and we're really hardworking from a values perspective. City of Regina residents are incredibly hardworking, and they're innovative, and they get. I like to say there's not much that they couldn't MacGyver. Right? It literally is a city of MacGyvers in a way. And then we have this whole industry that helps serve others. And so again, it could be the Optimist, it could be the Shriners, it could be those types of charitable organizations, or it could be the YW or the food bank or the Ritzis. You've got it's actually quite amazing. And then arts and culture wise, again, you got Jack Semple, you've got a Regina Symphony Orchestra, you've got all of this kind of incubated sort of music industry that here we have everything that every other city has. We just don't have necessarily we don't have a Hollywood, we don't have a Toronto movie scene, whatever, but it doesn't mean you can't be incubated here.
Exactly.
We ship our talent out lots of times, but there is 1 degree of separation for the city of Regina and the province of Saskatchewan as it relates to talent around the world.
And you can still get around the city in X amount of minutes as opposed
17.2 minutes.
17.2.
Yes.
Okay. So those strengths lead into opportunities for the city, and I'm pretty bullish on this in terms of what we could build. Tell me what you think we can build.
Oh gosh, I think the value added on the agriculture side is a really big deal, and we've figured out the offtake into energy and to alternative food sources, whether that's biomass or the protein extraction industries. And so for us to be able to take something that is literally what our province is built on and be able to add value, it would make my father, who was long deceased, incredibly happy. He was in the grain business forever.
Yeah.
We have that potential. We have a creative industries, massive potential. And the beautiful thing about our creative industries is that technology and creativity kind of go hand in hand.
Yes.
So that digital media studio and how you're producing movies now, actually all the skills that you develop as it relates to the technology behind that is transferable to everything else. Our clean energy research that's happening at the University of Regina is massive. But I will tell you that in terms of a niche market, University of Regina, as it relates to psychology and public safety personnel, we have CIPCERTs, which is all about the protection and PTSD or PTSI, post-traumatic stress injuries, with public safety personnel. It's leading here. We've got post-secondary also includes depot, if you want to think about it that way.
True.
We've had depot, and we're going to continue to have depot.
Yeah.
We're really proud of that. It's very Canadian. very Canadian. And then, the manufacturing thing, which we've been mass producing farm implements and things to go into mining and agriculture for a long time.
Right.
The refining of that for the global markets where the land isn't quite so big, like we could own a whole bunch of that. So the technological advancements around manufacturing of farm implements for, say, India, that's a big industry.
Yeah.
Elsewhere in the world, Brazil, Australia, that we can modify what we build on our land mass to go elsewhere. There's nothing but potential.
And we punch above our weight on all those categories, I would say.
We punch above our weight on everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the things that are kind of in the news today. It's like the infrastructure pieces and some of these important pieces that could be built. Like, we already know the aquatic center, but there's some other things that, if you're running for another term, what would you like to see happen, say, over the next 4 years in terms of that area and those infrastructure projects?
I think you just need to be committed to the replacement of existing, the addition of new for our growth, which we're behind on. And you got to weather the storm for the angst that creates.
But you mentioned that we're behind on it.
Oh my gosh.
Why are we behind?
Because it's hard.
Yeah.
Like politically, it's hard. If you serve a 4-year term and all you're concerned about is your 4-year term, then you won't do it. You simply won't do it, because I'm going to tell you tell people 0 or you'll decrease taxes. It'll go ahead. Get elected. But we didn't invest. In the 70s, we put 6-inch pipes in the ground. Well, they're just not at capacity. We can't get density. We can't actually get new building in our existing area until we go in and methodically replace those things. We need wastewater expansion and for industry first, because the economy will drive the residents. And so if you don't have the economy, you don't get anything else. And so we've had a focus here in the city, I think, on residential development, but really it all comes down to what can we do to support the growth of industry? Because if you grow industry, you're going to grow your residential base. Right. That's how it's going to work. And so water, we've approved a water expansion network, and it was originally called the Eastern Pressure Solution, but the water expansion network. I don't know how it's possible that this council has to make a decision that if we don't make the decision, we can't build another new building in 36 months.
Yeah.
Because we just don't have water pressure enough to, you just don't have it. So how did it get to that point? And I'm going to tell you, it would have been cheaper to build 10 years ago. In those dollars, it would have been as expensive, but there's stuff that water and wastewater have to be clearly your focus, but the infrastructure needed to recruit people is massively important. And that's where you saw the Catalyst Committee report come back and say, you're 12 years behind in indoor water facilities.
Right.
Okay, so you have to replace it now, and you have to add. You have to replace the loss, and plus you have to add. You look at the library. The library's been working on this, again, a 50-year-old building. And so how do you build something that not just replaces, but adds? And I think that's always the goal. And the Brandt Center is up next. We can't, tough to get concerts in a 7,000-seat arena. Really tough. That's the experience post-pandemic. And so it's committing to and methodically continuing. And so 4 years from now, we've got a pool built. Whatever that pool looks like, we got additional pool built. 4 years from now, the library's made a decision on its main branch.
Gotcha.
They've been in a position where they've been supported to make that decision. Where we've either got to improve Curry Field or we've got a new center stage ball diamond. Where we've got plans in place, whatever the next multiplex event center looks like. All of that. And so, in addition to that, we've got an answer to wastewater expansion for the next section of growth. We've done some really hard things. We had this is all boring stuff to people, but the development fees that we charge for when you go and develop an area of the city.
Right.
Right. So in 2017, they approved what was called the service agreement fees, development fee levies. Yeah. And they created a model. And no one tested the model to see if it was working. And it put us $58 to $70 million in debt because we kept saying, oh, this is an SAF project. This is an SAF project. But the SAF fees weren't coming in. And so we were adding to the SAF, but we never fixed the model. So they tested it 5 years ago and said, yeah, the assumptions that we had in the model aren't working. So super.
Yeah.
So we just passed a new SAF model to figure out how to deal with the deficit, but also the growth projects that need to happen under the development fees that we collect, and to figure out the intensification, that like there's fees that need to be in place, or revenue you need to generate in order to replace the existing infrastructure.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it needs to continue to be done. And so anybody who says, well, we can't possibly do it now.
When can you do it?
I don't know. I'm actually not sure of the answer.
Yeah.
It's when can you do it? And I can get frustrated with the list of things you have to clean up or try to advance. And I do get frustrated. But the reality is you're elected to try and make those decisions in some sort of methodical way and prioritizing sort of way. And people will argue, hey, this is more important than this. Okay. But what happens when one breaks? So it's a valid discussion to be having, but it's also short-sighted, and what you're doing is just inflaming the issue, because you still have to deal with it.
So the issue from my lens is don't do anything to raise my taxes. But if you don't do that, then your city actually deteriorates over time, right? Which I've seen that, right? And I've lived here a long time. But I see what all you were just talking about is truly an opportunity for our city.
Oh, it's a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
You think about attracting and retaining young people here.
Yeah.
So between the age of 25 to 40, I'm calling young. But you see the ability to keep them here because, hey, I can live here and it's affordable. I can buy a house.
Yes.
I can travel anywhere I want to travel, and I can enjoy a quality of life. My kids aren't short any opportunity.
Right.
If they want to train in the arts, they can train in the arts. They want to train in movies, they can train in movies. They want to train in baseball or soccer or what have you, swimming. They can do those things in this city, so that if they want to go explore the world, they've got all the skills and hopefully talent that they've nurtured and again incubated here. It's a massive opportunity, but it's also it's about the recruitment. Like, why do I want to go to Regina? And so I hear it from CEOs all the time. It's like, you need to invest in some of these things to make it an exciting, livable city.
But we're talking about really mortgages, aren't we? We're not talking about operational debt. We're talking about debt that is actually paid over time, right? So
this is the dilemma. We have about, call it $3 billion worth of right now depreciated assets on our books, like
for the city of Regina.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so if you borrow money to build a building, that's called a mortgage. That's actually the definition of the debt. And so we take mortgages out on big infrastructure projects, like Buffalo Pound Water Treatment Plant, the Water Expansion Network, Mosaic Stadium. So you would take a mortgage out on a pool, is what you do. Because the theory is that you're collecting taxes to pay that mortgage for the people that get to use the asset.
Yeah, immediately.
And so we've tried to set aside money to try and catch up to all of the deteriorating assets, the stuff that should have been replaced over the last 20, 25 years or planned for that wasn't. And so there's 0.5, I think, put in place for 5 years, 0.5 of a mill rate put in place for 5 years for facilities, revitalization. So we own these things. You have to keep them up, right? You have to keep them up or invest in whether it's energy efficiency, new roofs, basic things. And so that's been done. And so there's some money set aside, but it's $1 billion deficit. And so how are you going to borrow money to replace some of the bigger ones, collect the taxes on that for the folks who get to use and enjoy that asset while still kind of building up the other ones? I will say this, that it's an interesting conversation around, we want the same service levels. We want you to do more with less. We want this, but don't tax me or reduce my taxes and get us nicer stuff.
Yeah, that's always going to be the case.
There's a section of that Venn diagram which does not exist.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
And so, there's some pushback, on efficiency perspective. And this is what I was going to say. I think people have an issue when they look at the city organization and say, that's not efficient, that's not efficient, that's not efficient. We've all seen the pictures or you see this stuff. That's a fair criticism, which is my point is we got a black hole we take in and we've got a black hole of money because our financials are not clear in how we invest and what we spend money on. And who's within budget and who's out of budget. We're not good at communicating back. Hey, here's all where we've invested your money. We're not good at that. And so for the taxpayer to say, just find it internally,
right,
but don't cut my services. So that's a big project that is going to take multiple years to do, but it's already underway. And how I know that is that in the last 4 years, inflation has gone up 16.9%.
right.
Canadian rate of inflation. Property taxes, mill rate increases have gone up 12.6.
Okay.
So we haven't kept up with inflation on mill rate increases. We've expanded offerings like community safety and well-being. We've got more cops on the street for safety. We've got street teams. We've got investment in a bunch of different projects. You're going to have a new water treatment plant. You're going to have a new water expansion network. We've got money invested in more roads and streets than ever before. So we've been doing more with less.
Right.
But you have to be able to, people need to see where their dollars are being spent. It's a big piece of it. So there's this frustration with, where are you spending the money? We do an increase which doesn't match inflation necessarily. And we can point to, and I think that where City Council gets comfortable is take 0.5 for this project and show us where that increase is going to go to.
Yeah.
It's an easier justification for when people feel like, do we need 8 people standing on a boulevard doing X?
Yeah.
I can't answer that question. That's deep in the weeds.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the direction of that's where you're trying to get to.
And there's frustration out there. There's no doubt.
100%.
Absolutely. I mean, it's tight times for people, and we get that, right? But there's frustration too, and I'm going to just go down this path. I hope you don't mind. Is frustration with council not being on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah. So I keep hearing this.
Yeah.
So we pulled the stats for 2023.
Okay.
70% of the votes were unanimous.
70%. That's interesting. I wouldn't.
When you
guess
include receive and files, like just standard reports, is 83.
Yeah.
So is it just that the 30% that we don't agree on, that's that's such a show as to be overblown or so dramatic as to be they can't get it together? I'm going to tell you, we have more meetings. We've dealt with more pieces of kind of policy and legislation. And there's an argument that you've elected 11 individuals. It's not a party system.
No, it isn't. Yeah.
So you got one who's elected at large. My job is to figure out the pulse and the balance as best I can. And then you've got 10 individuals who, some may be single issue councillors.
Yeah.
Some may be, non-confrontational. Is like, oh, that's a really hard decision. I'd like to not make that decision.
Exactly.
That's fair enough. Or some may be, focused more on their ward as opposed to the city. All fair. But the folks in that ward have elected that individual to represent that ward, but you take an oath to the city of Regina.
Yes.
And so it's a really difficult thing. Or I sit there and say that we're not a consensus board. That's actually not where you're supposed to. You're supposed to have opposing views and debate them.
Well, you love a good debate.
You're supposed to, because you actually knock out better ideas. Like sometimes a question will get answered, and I'm like, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
But I disagree with you in principle, but I didn't think about that element. Is there something else we can do?
So what you just told us here, like the public perception is absolutely wrong in that sense. Because the majority of the decisions being made by council are actually unanimous.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, right?
Yeah. I just think some of the dramatic things are so dramatic as to it gets positional then, right? Or you're embarrassed about a debate or behavior, or you're trying to navigate folks who have perhaps a certain ideology or belief system.
Yeah.
And you're trying to navigate that on the balance of the city.
The one thing that we know is that civic politics, municipal politics, is the closest to the people, right? So if I have a bump on my road or I'm phoning councillor, right, or whatever. I don't, but some people do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't have that in provincial or federal or as much.
No.
Yeah.
And I always find it interesting at the voter turnout at the provincial and federal levels, which is closer to 50%, right? we get 20 to
22,
25. Yeah, we was 22 last time,
yeah.
but 20 to 25% voter turnout. And so, but the devil is in the details. The rub of your daily life exists at the municipal level.
Yes.
If your garbage isn't picked up, you're not phoning the province.
No.
If your pothole's not fixed,
No.
you're not phoning the province. If your water gets shut off, you're not phoning. That's us.
Yeah.
Right? Your toilet flushing and, that's important
Yeah.
stuff. That's us.
Yeah.
And so, how you move around the city during construction, that's us. And so I find it fascinating that I almost think it's a bit upside down. Or you're going to show up, 50% of the population shows up to vote federally. You should have 50% showing up municipally.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's apathy in the city when it comes to voting?
It's just, I think the issues aren't as big. Like if you're going to have a debate about investment in schools, that's provincial, right? Like I want my schools taken care of. I want to have hospitals built. I want to make sure highways are in good shape, like the big issues. And so you show up there and there's more power there. And frankly, there's more money there. And there's more money again at the federal level. So I'll come back to your question about investment in infrastructure.
Yeah.
Why are folks, when inflation on groceries, that's not the city. Inflation on gas, that's not the city. Inflation on, supply chain issues in construction is not the city.
Yeah.
Those aren't civic issues. But the call for lower taxes or 0.8 tax increase is at the civic level.
Yeah.
It's upside down. The biggest bags of money are at the federal level. The biggest bags, then it goes province and then it goes civic. And there's a stat, and I'm sure you've heard it from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, is we get 8 to 9 cents on tax dollars in totality collected. We have 60% of the infrastructure. And so without help from the other levels of government, and I'll say this, when the federal government in the United States announced $1 trillion for infrastructure spending, they're doing great with it. So when we don't have big infrastructure dollar buckets of money to try to access, we also fall massively behind. But if you're earning an income from any organization, you're going to get a raise every year.
Right.
So the province and the federal government get raises every year. We only can raise revenue through property tax increases. And so
you hear about it.
Oh my gosh, you hear about it. You hear about it, but it's just inappropriate. Start asking the province and the federal government when you're going to vote, say, we need more money for infrastructure because we got a deficit and we can't repair all of our deficit or build new without help.
Yeah.
We just can't.
And hopefully they'll see it. So that's part of your job, I suppose, as mayor, right?
Part of my job.
Yeah, knocking on those doors. Or kicking them down.
Yeah. And I would say the province has been great in terms of asking for the flexibility because every city is different. What every city needs is going to be slightly different. And so when you get narrowed down into, you can have money for this, it's not necessarily helpful. So the province has been really good about arguing for kind of that regional flexibility. So what Regina needs might be different than what Winnipeg needs. It might be different than what Abbotsford, British Columbia needs. And so leave us with the flexibility to address the next thing on the list.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm going to change gears.
All right.
Take you off the hook here.
All
right. Let's talk about the chamber and organizations like the chamber. Are they important to the city?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, it's really difficult when you're looking to, I got asked this question about how do you stay engaged? And I said, I can't talk to every voter. Like it's physically impossible. And so when you have associations and organizations that are representative of thousands of people, it is such a powerful voice for policy and for advocacy and for the general sense of how are folks feeling. Yeah. Right? Like I think coming out of a pandemic, and we seem to have all forgotten that, 2 years ago we were just coming out of a pandemic. Yeah. I appreciate everybody wants to forget. But in that recovery system, I have a sense that like people are, you said frustrated. I said, we ask people to do extraordinary things, once a century sort of things. And people want to get back to normal in whatever definition that is. I said, their tolerance for change is really limited because of, I think that we just tap them out. There's not a lot in the bank as it relates to modifying behavior or thinking about things outside of, we just want what we had. We can't have it anymore. And so the post-pandemic fallout is that things have changed. Things have in some ways accelerated. Others have stalled. And there's an adjustment piece to that, which we're just not through yet, I think. But I think there's a tolerance piece to people's ability to keep moving forward when there's all this kind of pressure coming from every direction.
Great. And you're seeing that in the business community, et cetera.
I'm seeing it in the business community. Interestingly, though, I will tell you that I think Saskatchewan is in an extraordinary place. Like, I talk to other mayors, whether, it doesn't matter if it's out east, out west, or in between. And where we're situated for the future is almost better than anywhere else right now.
I actually agree.
Yeah, we have, you hear folks say we have what the world needs. It's true. I hear it from everybody.
Yeah.
And there's going to be this piece where they want to pick it up and move it somewhere else. And I think that fight for the value add here, regardless of what it is, value add on manufacturing, on digital media, on agriculture, it's really important that we hang on to it here. And that it's going to require investment. So I'm really pleased with some of the investments that have been happening. But we're in a really great kind of opening and growth and kind of job creation sort of space that I don't think a whole bunch of the other provinces are. They're probably in a much different situation.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The next couple of years are going to be interesting for our province.
Yeah,
because we've got everything everybody needs.
Yeah, including the people.
Yeah, and that's probably our biggest asset, isn't it? So we talked about how busy you are, but I want to ask a question: on a personal level, what does Sandra do when she's not busy? or are you just reading all the time?
No. Sometimes I got asked what's your social life like, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
What's social life?
I sit inside my house and just go, this is nice and quiet. Look at how quiet it is here. So I go home at night, and normally it's like I have to kind of cash out.
Decompress.
Like I just decompress, cash out. Sometimes I read, sometimes I watch Netflix. But I made a commitment when my grandchildren arrived 5 years ago that I wouldn't go more than 4 weeks without seeing them.
So they're in Saskatoon?
I got my oldest 2 kids and my 2 grandkids are in Saskatoon.
Yeah.
And so I get up every 3 to 4 weeks, even if it's just for 24 hours on a Sunday. I get up and I'm just Grandma Shrandra.
Yeah, and that's Shrandra?
Shrandra.
Because that's what they say.
That's my Grandma Shrandra. Yeah. And then they put my heels on, they put my glasses on and say, look, I'm the mayor. I'm like, okay. One
of the things that I know about you is that your 4 children are exceptional. Like, they are incredibly intelligent. Tell the folks about like their levels of where they're at. They're just amazing.
My oldest is she got her PhD in microbiology by the age of 25. Jeez. And she works for an agency and is married and has the 2 children and is funny and wonderful. It's kind of an incredible thing to see your children parent. Like it's actually it's part of the beauty of being a grandparent is seeing your kids parent. My son-in-law is a wonderful human being. My oldest son is in computer science and works for a company in Saskatoon, a technology company in Saskatoon. And his gal is in the event business. And my middle son is an engineer out on the island, out on Vancouver Island. My youngest son is he's an economist and he works here in the city as a research coordinator. So I think the most important thing, though, is that they like each other. Yeah, absolutely. They actually enjoy being around each other. And yes, debate. My oldest son calls debate a love language in our household. Yes. He said, because when I was 12 or 13, I had a voice, and he goes, and my mom listened. And he said, but my mom would say, okay, now make your case. Yeah. And so he said, you didn't say no to us. You said, make your position known, and we'll have the debate about the particular issues. And it was, you got to know sometimes, but you also got to modified plans or a yes. And so he said, he goes, I've had to kind of it turns out not everyone likes to do that. He's learned that. And so, but it's an interesting thing because when all 4 of them in the room, anything's game. Like they will talk about anything. In fact, they were teasing me recently about, we'll do your debate prep. I'm like, that would be brutal. That'd be turnabout's fair play. They must be very proud of their mom and their grandma. Grandma, what was it again? Grandma Shrandra. Shrandra, I love it. Well, Grandma Shrandra,
we're going to be done here.
All
So
right.
thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you on Chamber Chat.
An absolute privilege of mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.